Welcome to another episode of Integrity Bites. I'm Darren Murphy and I'm the CEO and founder of Core Integrity, for those that know me. With me today is Neil Fletcher. So I'm very excited to welcome Neil to Integrity Bites. Welcome, Neil.
Thank you, Darren. Pleasure to be here.
Now, Neil's new to the Core Integrity team in a newly created role as Director of Speak Up programs. So for those that know, we run whistleblower and speak up hotlines for a lot of clients across the corporate, government and sporting worlds. And thanks to some really good growth and some demand, we've now created this specialised role. And I scanned the market long and hard, both locally and abroad, and managed to find Neil, who's returning back home after 21 years of being abroad in some really exciting places like the Middle East and Dubai and Saudi Arabia, and living in England and working all throughout Europe. So welcome to Australia. What's it like being back home?
It's amazing, actually. I'm surprised about the amount of rain, but one thing I'm definitely pleasantly surprised about is the real increase in infrastructure.
Okay.
Yeah, the city. Right. I think the city's much more livable now than it's ever been.
All right. Well, you can put your vote in for the politicians. You just missed our recent state of elections in New South Wales. So we've got Neil joining us to run our Speak Up hotline programs, which we're really excited about. So why this role? What was an appeal to you when you thought about all the roles in the world that you could go to, and particularly coming back home to Australia and all the options you had? What was it about this role that sort of appealed to you?
Well, I think there's two pieces, Dan. One is the role, and also the other is the organisation. So our purposes, which is to help people do the right thing. So having, I guess, personally experienced the consequences of an organisation with a very poor speak up culture and bad leadership behaviours. And conversely, I've had the pleasure and been blessed to work for an organisation that had strong ethical leadership and a real speak up culture, so seeing both sides of the coin. This role, being able to help organisations do the positive, and if they have the negative, help them repair the negative, but if they're starting out afresh, help them build the positive. It was, what I'm passionate about. I don't think I've seen another role like this in the marketplace. It was an easy decision.
Good stuff. Well, we're happy to have you. And I guess from your time working abroad, maybe just share a couple of examples of the kind of organisations you worked for over the last sort of 10, 15 years.
Sure. So big oil and gas. I was at BP for a few years.
And they've had their own challenges.
They did. And that's a great example of an organisation that went on its own journey. And the last couple of years at BP was an amazing place to work. Fantastic speak up culture. I can't speak any highly of it. People were empowered no matter the level of the organisation they were at. I've worked in huge, big construction and manufacturing organisations. Had the most exciting role being based down in Montego Bay in Jamaica, working for Sandals Resorts as the head of ethics and compliance. That was an amazing role.
Was the corporate uniform board shorts and singlets?
Polo shirt.
Nice. Right. Now, there's been a bit of a movement in the last sort of 5 or 10 years globally, but particularly we just focus on Australia, change of whistleblower legislation in the last couple of years, which most people know about, the rise of the Me Too movement for the last sort of 5 or 10 years, and then interspersed amongst that across corporate Australia is, a bunch of banking and other royal commissions into conduct.
Yes.
What's it been like back in Europe and the Middle East with this kind of topic? Is it also front and centre over there around getting people to speak up and call out bad behaviour? Like, what's the experience like over there?
Yeah, I think Australia is, coming back here, I think Australia is sufficiently well advanced actually on a lot of things that are happening. So EU, as you know, just put some legislation out to protect people who speak up on whistleblowers. An EU directive came out. Mm-hmm. I think Australia is already well advanced down that path. There's much, the definite thing you see is businesses, particularly corporates, are wanting ethics, compliance and integrity to be embedded in the business. They don't want them creating new processes. So there's been a big movement away from a centralised compliance function, essentially being the police and the auditors of the organisation, to really pushing ethics compliance to the front of the organisation with just a small oversight role by the central corporate headquarters type function. So that's quite a big change.
That probably echoes what we have here. We most corporates here that have got a good risk management framework work on the 3 lines of defence. So first line is the business unit that owns a risk, and you've got to have controls in place and obviously know the effectiveness of those controls. Line 2 being the centralised team within the business that might provide some audit and assurance and oversight and test those controls and provide advice. And then obviously your third line is external auditors and others coming in to check.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think ESG's become a little bit of A bit of a buzzword. Again, new directive came out from the EU, and the governance word of the ESG phrase, I think, is starting to interact. So human rights and environmental, compliance and ethics and integrity in relation to those two, it does impact, I think, an organisation much more than it used to.
Yeah, right.
So I can see that definitely coming down the pipeline as well.
Now, you and I have had some chats about your first 30, 60, 90 days, and for those that might be our clients out there, particularly in the hotline space, what can they sort of expect to see from you in the next sort of 30 to 60, maybe 90 days?
Well, they'll definitely get a visit from me. That's one thing for certain. Hopefully in person if we can, if not via Teams. So definitely you'll get an invitation from me to have a dialogue. We'll be talking about the services that we offer and the programs that we're offering. We'll talk about some thought leadership about what's coming down the pipeline for organisations.
Good stuff. And for those that know us, I'm always big on, seeing what we can do next for clients in terms of going above and beyond. So part of the brief I've given Neil is that, to really take a fresh set of eyes to what we're doing here in the hotline space, but also elsewhere across the business, and bring some of that international experience back into the fold here so we can stay at the cutting edge of what we're doing. So just to wrap up, so you've been settled house-wise for a couple of weeks here. Apart from the rain and the infrastructure, what else have been some of your observations?
A lot more restaurants, which I'm looking forward to exploring lots more of those. And actually, I think the city's got more beautiful if it's difficult to... I know the people who live here, you probably take this for granted, but having lived here before I moved abroad, now having come back after such a long time, and actually, my partner...
And when he says here, he means Sydney, the most beautiful city.
I see that competition hasn't started. Hasn't finished. But yeah, I think as a city, it's more livable and it's more beautiful than it used to be.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, welcome. We're really excited to have you here. I know it's been a busy 2 weeks for you for the first 2 weeks. We're heading off into Easter, so thanks for joining, and we're looking forward to seeing what you contribute over the coming period.
Thanks very much, Dan. I look forward to meeting current and future clients in the near future.
All right. Well, thanks for watching. As we said, Neil and the team will be in touch to see our hotline clients over the coming months. And we've got some good things coming up in terms of some new training programs and other things to keep in touch with you. So stay tuned and we'll catch you on the next Integrity Bites.
Take care.
Thanks.